Hi and welcome. My name is Chris Shelton, coming to you from beautiful San Jose, California, the heart of Silicon Valley, talking about the DIY home remedies on things in order to help you improve your health and your overall well-being. Today what I'm talking about is prolapses. What is a prolapse and how can you fix it? I think that a lot of people out there believe that when we talk about the internal organs of the body, that God just kind of put those internal organs in there like a jigsaw puzzle, so they just kind of sit there and rest there. But no, actually there's things that, or mechanisms inside the body that actually help to hold those internal organs in place. And actually what a prolapse is when those organs fall out of place. These internal organs are actually held in place according to science and anatomy by what is known as the mesentery. And the mesentery is a fold of the perineum that helps to attach the internal organs like the small intestine, stomach, the pancreas, and the spleen, and all the other internal organs to the abdominal cavity wall. Okay, so but what is the mechanism that allows for that organ membrane to do its function of holding these organs or wrapping and encompassing these internal organs? Well, according to Chinese medicine, your spleen plays a huge role in making sure that things are held in place. So for example, one of the functions of the spleen is to hold all the internal organs in place. Number two is to hold the blood within the blood vessels. So if you're somebody who's anemic or bleeds easily, a lot of times like people with diabetes, for example, the fear is that if they get cut, that they bleed and actually could cause staph infections or actually bleed out. So when the spleen is out of balance and the stomach is out of balance, this allows for the ability for its proper function to decrease. And so what is a prolapse? Most common prolapses that we actually see are like prolapse of the anus, prolapse of the bladder, and of course as soon as I say anus, the peanut gallery behind the camera starts smiling. Prolapse of the anus, prolapse of the bladder, and prolapse also of the uterus. Now in Western medicine what they do is they do a full hysterectomy if you have a prolapse of the uterus, and it's really unfortunate. The way that we fix it in clinical practice is, number one, we change the diet according to Chinese nutrition, not according to Western nutrition, and we have them do Qigong practices that help to strengthen the stomach and the spleen, because the negative emotion that weakens the stomach and the spleen is the emotions of worry, anxiety, over intellectualizing too much, thinking too much. This actually affects the digestive system and affects the proper functioning of the spleen to do its function. One of many functions, in this case what we're talking about today, is being able to hold the internal organs in place. So if you do have a prolapse, like even a hemorrhoid, for example, like we'll see people that have hemorrhoids, we'll see women that come into clinic that maybe from childbirth, they had hemorrhoids, had surgery, and still the hemorrhoids come back. In that case there, that means that spleen is not working right either. So true bearing down and stuff like that could cause a hemorrhoid, but if the spleen is not strong in its function, then it'll actually create the ideal situation for that hemorrhoid to come up. So if you do have a hemorrhoid, a very simple thing that you could do is a potato suppository, and it's not a whole potato. That's a totally different video, and we'll talk about that some other time. But it's actually a potato sliver, and what you do is you peel the potato, you cut a little, maybe about 1.5 inches by about 1/4 of an inch, and you actually insert that into your rectum. And when you have your next bowel movement, what will happen is the bowel movement will actually push that potato out. One person that's coming with severe hemorrhoids, and they've talked about how miraculously that it works. But always talk to your healthcare provider before sticking any potatoes or anything else up your rectum. Once again, avoiding like the breads and the pastas, those types of carbs. Wine, if you drink a lot of wine, I would cut back on the wine because the combination of you worrying too much, having the breads, the pasta, ice cream, those types of things, dairy, too much dairy, will actually create an environment for the spleen to become weak. Ice cold drinks, if you drink ice cold water, this also damages the spleen in the stomach. So these are just some little things that you could do. Foods to help to uplift the spleen would be foods like pumpkin, gourds, sweet potatoes, yams, fennel. There's all kinds of root vegetables that are actually really good for helping the spleen and the stomach. If you have like a sweet potato a day, it's a different calorie count than a regular potato. Energetically, according to Chinese nutrition, it actually has so many benefits. So if you're somebody that's craving sweets, because the flavor of the spleen is sweet, meaning that those are the foods that benefit the spleen. But what it wants is it wants naturally sweet. Like I said, like the sweet potatoes, the pumpkin, the gourds, oatmeal, long grain rice. Basmati rice is sweet in nature. Brown rice, those types of things. That's what it really wants. Molasses, syrup, those types of things. That's what it really wants. It doesn't want the sugars. It doesn't want the carbs, because all it's doing is further damaging the spleen, which then further creates a potential for disease. And a prolapse is also a warning sign of other things, because the spleen really influences and controls so much. When we see conditions like tumors, cancers, fibroids, people with chronic bloody noses, any anemia, blood conditions, those types of things, it comes back to the spleen. So if you are craving something sweet, it's your body's way of saying, listen to me, take care of me, feed me something naturally sweet that's going to help to uplift me. Do these Qigong practices. There's the earth element herbs, so click on the link below. We're associated with the Infinity out of Los Angeles, California, and they have a line of herbs that are meant to benefit the different internal organs. And the earth element herb is really awesome to be able to help to uplift that spleen, to support that spleen, to be able to uplift those organs. So especially if you're somebody that knows that you have a spleen deficiency, spleen weakness. And some of the telltale signs is pale complexion, lack of energy, muscles are flabby, lots of phlegm, arthritis maybe. Depends on the type of arthritis. That's a different subject. If you're getting cysts, fibroids, those are other things that are warning signs. If you look at your tongue, you stick out your tongue, it's flabby and pale and it has tooth marks around it. That means that the spleen is not transforming and transporting the fluids properly. So there's some telltale signs. Infinity earth element herb is so amazing to help to benefit and strengthen the spleen and your digestive system. So click on the link below. Also, I want to hear more from you. What are some of the things that are affecting you, and what are some of the questions that you have that we might be able to answer? To me, I believe that everything is fixable. Sometimes true, sometimes disease gets too far advanced, and then all we're doing is pain management, those types of things. But I do believe most cases out there where people say that it's not fixable, I do believe that there are a lot of conditions, especially chronic pain and something like a prolapse. So what else can you do? Well, and by the way, the spleen is located on the left side of the body, and so when we talk about the spleen, it encompasses the pancreas, and also its yang organ counterpart is actually the stomach. And this organ is pretty good size, about the size of a small grapefruit. And interesting enough, in Western medicine, for years they were taking out the spleen, just like they take out gallbladders. And now the medical papers that are coming out on the removal of the spleen, they're finally saying like, oh wow, like we should not be doing this. Let's get to the root of what causes the spleen to malfunction. Because when the spleen is removed, then that pancreas, that liver has to take up its functionality to make up for the slack. Okay, so the color yellow or the color orange is associated with the stomach and spleen. So you can imagine a yellow cloud filling up into the left side of the body. And what we want to do is we want to focus on the emotions that actually weaken the spleen, which is the emotions of worry and anxiety. So if you're somebody who gets anxious a lot, one of the mechanisms which contributes to that anxiety is the spleen. And diet-wise though, like carbs, pastas, breads, sugar, those kinds of things also will weaken the spleen as well too. And also bring up more worrying and more anxiety, believe it or not. So one of the things we tell people when they have anxiety is to stop eating sugar, stop eating breads, carbs, pasta, those types of things. Okay, so what you do is if there's something going on in your life that you're anxious about, that you know that you over-intellectualize about, you focus on the left side of the body. Imagine a yellow cloud filling up into the left side of the body underneath the rib cage here. And what you do is the healing sound for this spleen is actually who, like if you have a stomach ache. So if you're at home or somewhere alone, you can do the sound audibly. So I would focus on a circumstance to make it into a mindful practice. I'm not just focusing on the organ, I'm focusing on circumstances. Like, do I have an upcoming event that I'm nervous about? I don't know, maybe you have a new job interview, maybe you have a court case coming up, maybe you have a big exam coming up, who knows? Anyways, all those emotions are natural around those circumstances, but how it overcomes your being is what we want to give you the tools for. So I'd focus on something in the past, or in the present or in the future that's upcoming. I'd feel it, what's involved, who's involved. And then as I inhale, I go ahead and pull the breath into the spleen, left side of the body. Exhale. Inhale. You can actually place your hands here if you want to too, or you can just rest your hands down on the side. So inhale. And as I'm making that who sound, I'm imagining that circumstance leaving like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and into the ground. When the worry and the anxiety leaves, then the positive virtue of peace of mind and serenity actually comes into play. Now, if you're in public, you're probably not going to do that sound out loud. So in that case, what you do is you do it underneath your breath. So even if you're driving, obviously with the eyes open, you would imagine pulling the breath into the left side of the body. And you don't have to anatomically know exactly where this organ is located. Believe it or not, just by using your mind intent, your mind intent's going to bring you to that organ. And I'm going to pull the breath in. Okay, that's one of the practices. The other one is also the spleen move. So I'm going to inhale, start off by pulling down the heavens. Now you can pull down the heavens 3 times in order to gather yourself. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And then after my third exhale, I'm going to imagine my fingers become like long hollow straws, enter deep into the earth. I'm going to do a long inhalation, bring the hands together, bring the arms up, relaxing the shoulder, finding a pivot point on the ceiling or in the sky, and I'm going to shift, moving around that pivot point. So I'm kind of like wringing out this organ here. Plus also I'm stimulating the spleen meridian that actually ends right here underneath the armpit on both sides of the body. So I could actually imagine or feel the breath going into the left side of the body. Imagine that yellow cloud, focusing on a circumstance of worry or anxiety. Inhale and then exhale. Oh, by the way, the tongue position points straight down. This connects the internal channel for the spleen. So my breath is through the nose and out through the nose, allowing for the positive virtue of peace of mind and centeredness to come in. Okay, now from there, if the arms get too tired, then what you could go ahead and do is, like you're holding a ball, I'm going to shift left to right, focusing on that spleen, strengthening the spleen. And then as I exhale, I'm just going to allow that negative circumstance to release like a dark cloud. Inhale and exhale, pulling down the heavens. Okay, another organ that could play a role in this as well too is the liver. So the liver movement is like you're holding a ball. Inhale, and the liver is affected by anger, frustration, rage, and resentment, and old anger, which then when internalized turns into depression. So you once again make this into a mindfulness practice. Pull the breath into the right side of the body. This time imagine a green cloud filling up into the liver and gallbladder. And then as you exhale, imagine that circumstance of resentment or anger to leave like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and down deep into the ground. Okay, so when we let go of the anger and the resentment, the positive virtue of kindness comes in. Okay, so that's the next practice. Inhale. Exhales are pulling down the heavens. One more practice for the stomach is I call massaging the yang organs. So I'm going to inhale, bring the hands up, and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Okay, so to make this into more of a mindfulness practice, you could close your eyes and imagine golden light coming up, massaging those organs. Now this practice is called massaging the yang organs, which consist of the small, large intestines, bladder, gallbladder, what is known as the triple burner, which is not an organ, just a function of the 3 major areas of the body. And as you inhale, this visceral cavity, the viscera is just a fancy word for internal organs, you imagine this golden light coming up, massaging those organs, allowing for any toxicity in those organs, whether it's the uterus, the bladder, the intestines. Imagine that leaving like a dark cloud out through the bottom of the feet and deep into the ground. Okay, so we're just going to imagine that the yellow light from the earth is coming up and nurturing our earth element, which is our stomach, spleen, and pancreas. Once again, just allowing for the strengthening of these internal organs, imagining that these internal organs are pulling up back into place the way that they're supposed to. So if you do have a prolapse, just going to imagine that this mesentery which is the fold of the perineum, and the flock of geese flying over. They're talking back to me now. Okay, and so again, this peritoneum is the serous organ membrane that actually surrounds all the internal organs and attaches to the abdominal cavity wall. So you want to imagine the strengthening of this organ, holding your organs in place, pulling the organs back up again, inhaling and exhaling. And then I'm going to finish by pulling down the heavens 3 times. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Okay, so there's just a few practices that we did. We did the healing sound for the spleen, which is the sound of who, like you have an upset stomach. The color yellow is associated with the spleen. We did the spleen move. I demonstrated 2 movements of that. Also talked just briefly about the liver, because if that liver is supposed to control the stomach and the spleen, but it's not supposed to dominate it. And if it's dominating it, this could also control or influence potential for spleen weakness, or what is known as a spleen deficiency, which will set up the environment for a prolapse to exist. Is fixable, and you could actually fix it yourself. So if you want to learn more, please click on the link below. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share it with your friends. Every week we're putting this information out there, and we're putting it out there. Why? Because we love you, and also because we want to empower all people to be able to take care of their health care on all different levels. Until next time, I'm Chris Shelton. I will chi you later.